I've said it before and I'll say it again. NFL GMs might lie with their words, they do not lie with their money. And we've just had a massive clue as to what might happen on draft day, or at least what some NFL teams think might happen on draft day, and that is the Giants signing both Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston to 1-year deals. Now, what does this suggest? This suggests one of two things. Either that the Giants don't think one of the two quarterbacks, either Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, will be there, or they don't think, presumably, that Shedeur Sanders is worth drafting with that third overall pick. So with this new lens, and it also impacts teams like the Steelers, maybe even the Jets who need quarterbacks. So through this new lens, we're now going to do a mock draft, obviously focusing heavy on the Browns and the Giants and what they might do given this new context. So let's jump right into it. We have the Titans on the clock at 1, and I think at this point, guys, it's pretty obvious what they're going to do, and that is Cam Ward. All of their moves, or lack of moves rather, this free agency period strongly suggests they're going to draft Cam Ward. They've only got Will Levis as their only possible real starter, and they cannot go into this season in good conscience with Levis as that starter. They have to bring someone in. They haven't yet traded down, which you can imagine teams like the Giants are desperately trying to trade up with. So it's got to be Cam Ward at this point. Now, this is where it gets interesting now. As I said, the Giants have signed Jameis to a 2-year, $8 million deal and Russ on a 1-year, $10.5 million deal, which can be worth up to $21 million. That suggests, as I said, one of two things. Either that they don't think Sanders is going to be there, which I think at this point is actually the more realistic option, or they don't think Sanders is worth drafting. Given the state that the Giants are in terms of their head coach and general manager, Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen respectively, being told they're going to be fired if they don't win more games, I'd strongly suspect that that's because they don't think Sanders is going to be there, not that they don't think Sanders is worth drafting. Because if you draft a rookie quarterback, you can try and wrangle it with your boss, the owner, and say, well, look, it takes a while for them to develop. That's kind of like the last gasp of a dying head coach and general manager, is to draft a young rookie quarterback, particularly in the first round. So to me, it suggests that they don't think Sanders is going to be there, which means the Browns are going to draft him at 2. And that is what I'm going to put here. However, I think this would be a mistake from the Cleveland Browns. Shedeur Sanders, look, I think he's a fine quarterback. This is going to come across like I don't rate him at all as a prospect. I do. He's 36th on my big board, so he's not a first-round player, but he is my QB2. It is a weaker class, though, so not all QB2s are created equal. And the reason why I think the Browns would be a bad fit for Sanders is, firstly, he's being overdrafted. He's being drafted as a... This is where, Jaden Daniels got drafted 2 last year. Drake May got drafted, 4 last year? So to draft someone at 2 comes with very big responsibility. And I don't think Sanders can fill that, frankly. I think he's a quarterback that will be as good as the talent around him. I don't think the Browns have enough talent around him. I think the offensive line has taken a step back. They still need to address both tackle positions, I think. They don't have Nick Chubb, obviously an amazing player back in his day, and unfortunately his career got ruined thanks to injuries, but he's not the player he once was. The wide receivers, Cedric Tillman was looking good until his concussion, but you'd feel better about him being your wide receiver 2. And Jerry Jeudy, again, you've seen more bad from him than good throughout his career. Of course, he had very bright moments last year for the Browns, but I don't feel confident about that supporting cast, right? Bad offensive line, not great offensive weapons. And when you put a quarterback like Sanders in an environment like that, where he's not athletic, he doesn't have great physical tools like arm strength, so he's not going to be able to offset the lack of talent with his physical tools. And I know people are going to throw out he's Joe Burrow as, potential Joe Burrow. He is not Joe Burrow. Yes, he can throw with good anticipation, good timing. He can throw it in good rhythm as well. But he does not have that accuracy. And if you don't have, rushing threat, arm talent, and accuracy, you're not someone that I would feel comfortable drafting with the 2nd overall pick, especially considering the history of the Browns, right? Even someone like Baker Mayfield, who I think was a better personality fit, someone that could kind of be a leader, right? And I'm not saying Sanders can't, by the way, but I'm just saying that I think what the Browns need, especially as like a palate cleanser from the Deshaun Watson malarkey, is someone that can come in there, be a leader, and that's what Cam Ward we've known to be, thanks to his teammates coming out and say it. His transfer from Washington State came into Miami apparently and blew the players away. Sanders as a sly Nepo baby might be harsh, I know, but I just don't see that being a good fit. I don't see that being a good fit. And that might be what made Myles Garrett stay. I think that if the Browns don't go Sanders, if this is the second option, like I said, that the NFL does not see Sanders as a first-round talent like I do, or at least worthy of a top 15 pick, then maybe Kirk Cousins could be coming back, reunited with Kevin Stefanski. But I think if this was to happen on draft day, and I think it's a very good possibility that it does, I think this would not end well. I'm going to be brutally honest. I don't think it would end well. This does, though, now leave the Giants in a very precarious position at 3. The fear here is that Brian Dable and Joe Schoen, and I'll get the quarterback list up, is that they're still tempted to draft a rookie quarterback and basically just hammer as much resources at the quarterback position, hope that one of Jameis, Russ, or the young rookie can develop into something and save their jobs. What you're looking at, Jalen Milroe, Will Howard, who I like Will Howard, nowhere near the first round or the second round for that matter. Really, what you're going to be looking at here is Jackson Dart, the quarterback from Mississippi. And I've seen him even go at 3 in a few mocks. That's bonkers. That is absolutely bonkers. Jackson Dart is not ready to start in year 1. He took 30 snaps from under center. That Ole Miss offense feeds on half-field reads, predetermined reads. That's why, and basically it's like Sam Howell. If Jackson Dart, if his first read isn't open, he drops his eyes and he takes off with his legs. I think there's a lot of stuff to like about Dart. He has got better every year while he was at Ole Miss. He's a ball of clay. He's young. He's got the physical tools you're looking for. Good threat with his legs. He's got good arm talent. But this man is nowhere near ready to step foot and command an NFL offense. Nowhere near ready. So I'm going to pray that it's not that bad, that Brian Dable and Joe Schoen are not going to completely blow this team up by spending the 3rd overall pick on Jackson Dart, and they're going to be a bit more sensible. I do think that it's worth noting that that Jackson Dart could be on the board for the Giants at the top of the 2nd round. Again, it might be a bit rich for me, but I could definitely see that happening. In more positive news, I do think that this really nicely opens up the Giants to draft Travis Hunter. And I think, really, for Giants fans, this is a massive net positive for you guys. Like, coming away with Travis Hunter, probably the most talented player in the draft class, with the 3rd overall pick, you've not reached on a quarterback. You've got Russ and you've got Jameis who can tide you over for at least a year, probably sending you to a top pick next year with, realistically, a new head coach, a new general manager, so a fresh regime, and a better quarterback class. Like, genuinely, Giants fans, if this does end up like this is the best case scenario for you, I think. And I genuinely believe that. So if this was to happen on draft day, A+. And not just because I like Travis Hunter, because he's a fantastic player who can bolster the secondary opposite Deonte Banks and the other young players on that defense. But he can also be a great wide receiver for Russ, for Jameis, for Dart, whoever. Hopefully not Shedeur Sanders or whoever it might be as a reach at 3. And he'll be a two-way player and a fantastic player. And that's how you get better as a team, is by drafting players like Travis Hunter. Now, this is going to be more prediction, this one, because I'm going to be doing a pure what I would do mock draft very soon. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe for more NFL draft content. Trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, so I'd really appreciate it if you did subscribe. Now, the Patriots at 4. This has always been one where I've gone backwards and forwards with them. They've obviously revamped their defensive line now, added Milton Williams, added Harold Landry. They've just signed Stephon Diggs at wide receiver as well. Another piece of news that helps us kind of maybe think about what this team is thinking about doing come draft day. And Stephon Diggs signed a 3-year, $69 million deal with $26 million guaranteed, which is a lot of money for Stephon Diggs, especially coming off an injury. But really, it's a 1-year, $26 million deal with kind of how the money's been structured, which is fine. And I think really, yeah, it's a slight overpay for what Diggs is now, but he is also still now a very reliable kind of someone that Drake May can absolutely rely on, which is what he needs. Like, that's why his current starters are Kendrick Bourne, Kayshon Boutte, Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk, and Javon Baker. I like Kayshon Boutte. No, I don't. I like Demario Douglas, as that slot guy from Liberty. Who doesn't like a guy like that? And I really liked Javon Baker last year, but he obviously, I don't know if it was a coaching issue or if it was a development issue or maybe both. But I think adding a wide receiver like Stephon Diggs for Drake May is super important. And I would still go McMillan here. if this is what I would do, I would still go McMillan. But I do think that the Diggs signing kind of puts that on the back burners, and by back burners, I literally just mean the second round, because they still desperately need wide receiver. So I think this is going to be an offensive line pick. I genuinely believe that. And I genuinely think that with the signing of Morgan Moses, who I know is not exactly a spring chicken at this point in his career, I think that's more of like a stopgap, to be perfectly honest with you. And I know you got Morgan Moses at right tackle, you've got Mike Onwenu at right guard, you still have left tackle and left guard. And I've flipped between Will Campbell and Amar Membu here. But I'm going to, the more I think about this, the more I think it is going to be Will Campbell. I think he's the best offensive lineman in this class. Obviously, massive concerns about wingspan and arm length, which is really important in the NFL. Someone's got longer arms than you. Jalix Hunt, for example, versus Joe Tooney in the Super Bowl. It doesn't matter how good you are, right? I think Joe Tooney's absolutely fantastic, and Jalix Hunt is a great player, but he's a third-round rookie? He was dog-walking him in the Super Bowl because he had longer arms. It's a pure physics question. And so, yeah, he might be a guard, Will Campbell, but I think with how the Patriots are looking, I think you just kind of want to stack talent, really. The Jags at 5. Now, with the Jags, well, Abdul Carter's on the board here. And I know Patriots fans might be screaming at me saying draft Abdul Carter. And I understand that. And I'll address it now. The reason why I think Abdul Carter, I think he's definitely being played. The reason why I've gone with Campbell here in this instance is because I don't see how, given where you've addressed your needs in free agency, specifically along the defensive line, I don't really know if in good conscience you can not add something for Drake May on the offensive side of the ball, whether that is offensive line or wide receiver. I know it's probably Abdul Carter is a better player than Will Campbell on my board. Abdul Carter's the first ranked player on my board, but it's more nuanced than that, right? And I do think that you have to give Drake May something. He was your third overall pick last year. Will Campbell's going to help that guy play better. So, look, I know you might not like it. Abdul Carter's still on the board. Do the Jags draft Abdul Carter, or instead, we're going to do a trade here. So, yeah, I don't think the Jags drafting Abdul Carter makes a lot of sense, considering they've got Trayvon Walker, they've got Josh Hines-Allen, and of course he's better than them. But nevertheless, it still doesn't quite make sense from a team-building perspective. So I am going to go with the Bears here as the trade partners. They're going to trade. They got an extra second from the Panthers. And look, guys, this ain't going to be an exact science. Don't get the trade calculators out on me, okay? This is just a theory, okay? And let's just say it's an extra second, right? A first and 2 seconds, one this year, one next year. Look, I'm no trade guy. I'm forcing it through. Don't get angry with me. The Bears then are obviously going to draft Abdul Carter. And that's a fantastic get for them. Abdul Carter is absolutely dominant. Not yet a Micah Parsons, but definitely in that mold, right? Just like so athletic, so explosive, great bag of pass rush moves. Absolutely fantastic player who's going to massively, massively increase that Bears pass rush, which is essential. And the Bears can do this because of how they've spent their money in free agency. They've retooled the offensive line. And they've already got Rome Odunze, they've got DJ Moore. They can get a good running back in the second. You can't argue with the best player in the draft at 5. Even if it costs you a bit to trade up. Now, the Raiders, I think this is going to be Ashton Genty. Yeah, I think this is going to be Ashton Genty. I think I did this in my last mock draft as well. Pete Carroll loves running the ball. He's the oldest coach in the league. He's not here to try and build a 10-year dynasty, right? This guy's trying to make his team as good as he can right now. They've got Geno Smith at quarterback. They do need to add a wide receiver, but I think they can add another wide receiver in the second, in the third round. It is a deeper wide receiver class. You'll hear me saying this for quite a few teams. Maybe McMillan would have been the pick I would have made, but we're going to go with Genty here. We are, however, going to go with the Jets. Oh, are we going to go with the Jets here at McMillan, or are they going to go with their offensive line? Are they going to go offensive line? I do think that the Jets needing offensive line is really important at this point. Yes, Tyler Warren's here, bit of a luxury pick. I would love it for them, but they need to invest in their offensive line. They also do need wide receiver, and they do need interior defensive line. So the 3 players I'm thinking for them: Amar Membu, Tetairoa McMillan, Mason Graham. On my big board, Mason Graham, I think, is the top player. He's my 5th ranked player, then Tyler Warren at 6, then Amar Membu at 8. Oh, this is really tricky. I am going to go with Mason Graham here, though, because I think bolstering the trenches is... Yeah, I'm going to go with Amar Membu. Am I Membu? No, I'm not. I'm going with Mason Graham. Excuse me. I'm going with Mason Graham. This team is in a bit of a rebuild, refit, retooling, whatever you want to call it. Yes, it's got Justin Fields. Then that's not the quarterback of the future. You can kind of afford to invest in the trenches and just add more talent here. I think you can look to try and add that quarterback next year, to be honest with you. Now, the Panthers. This is McMillan. It's McMillan. They've shown a great knowledge for investing in the offense. They last offseason was the offensive line, brought in 2 new guards. So they know they have to build around Bryce Young. You've seen signs of life. Yeah, I like Jalen Coker. I like Adam Thielen. I want to see more from Xavier Legette. I think that Dave Canales would really value this guy on his offense. I can absolutely see it. The New Orleans Saints at 9 really are just the best player available approach kind of team, given their cap space and just the lack of any real talent, barring the likes of Chris Olave, obviously Alvin Kamara, but he's not that young anymore. They don't have a quarterback, obviously. So they're in a real tricky spot here. I think what I'm going to do, though, is you could look at going to the trenches. I think, though, with the edges, I don't love the edges on the board at the value. Like, I have James Pierce Jr. and Mike Green quite high, but I know the league won't, so I'm going to pass on them here. I'm going to go with Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan. I think the Saints drafting a really valuable position like corner and a great player like Will Johnson, who you're getting at a bit of a discount here because of that injury and the questions that surrounding it. If his injury history is kind of clear with teams, then I think him at 9 is a great player because Will Johnson is absolutely fantastic. He just is unfortunately the victim of not really playing that much in 2024. So the Jags are back on the clock now at 10, and I think this has got to be Tyler Warren for them. I love the fit with, obviously, Trevor Lawrence. He can be that kind of pseudo wide receiver 2 next to Brian Thomas Jr. And I mean, Tyler Warren and Brian Thomas Jr. on the same offense with Liam Cohen now as the head coach. Duval. What was that? 80% accuracy. Would just be fantastic. And I'm a Trevor Lawrence believer. I am. I know I've kind of been, that agenda's kind of been battered and bruised the last few years. But I think with Warren, I think the offensive line, I think they think the offensive line is good enough. And I think that with Tyler Warren, with Brian Thomas Jr., they do need to retool the running back room, and I would hit that heavy in the later rounds. I'd get 2 new running backs, to be perfectly honest with you, because Etienne is just not it. But I think Tyler Warren here is a really nice fit. Now, the 49ers at 11. This one, I've done it before, and I'm gonna do it again, guys. I'm gonna keep doing this. Ooh, Amar Membu's on the board. I'm gonna go with Amar Membu here. I absolutely love Amar Membu. He's a tackle for me, not a guard, but he could play guard in a pinch. Absolutely, so strong, great movement skills, fits perfectly with what the scheme is. Obviously, that Shanahan offense when they run a lot of like outside zone, get their offensive linemen on the move. Membu's so athletic. He's still young. Be a fantastic player on this team. Now the Cowboys. Yes, they need. This team has quietly quite a few needs at this point. And I think for me, it's a question of either Jihad Campbell, who I think is a Cowboys pick through and through, or is a Georgia defensive lineman, maybe like Michael Williams. I'm going to go with Jihad Campbell here still to the Cowboys. Just, again, a very, very Jerry Jones pick, right? Jihad Campbell's absolutely fantastic. My LB1 is a really good player. And I know it doesn't fill any of their needs, but this is something that I could definitely see the Cowboys going for. An Alabama linebacker who's absolutely fantastic. 12's a bit high for a linebacker, but it's a weaker class. We're going with it. Now, the Dolphins. The Dolphins are going to draft another offensive lineman here. I think it's so important. And I think the offensive linemen are going to go earlier than we think. Is this a Josh Simmons? I don't think it is. I think it's going to be a Kelvin Banks. I've let the mainstream media turn me away from Kelvin Banks. I really loved him before I did my big board, and I was a bit of a coward. I put him too low. I think Kelvin Banks Jr. is absolutely brilliant. I think he's going to fit, again, that scheme really nicely. He might be able to play guard if you want him to. I would obviously draft him to play tackle. Again, protect Tua, run the ball better. 2 things that the Dolphins need to do to start winning playoff games in January. Now, the Colts, they've obviously added some weapons to their defense. They've brought in Cam Bynum, Charvarius Ward. They've brought in Daniel Jones as well as quarterback help. They could go with Colston Loveland here. I don't know how highly. I'm going to go with Colston Loveland. I'm not this high on Loveland, but I know that looking at the Colts depth chart, it's full of NPCs. They got a lot of tight ends, and they're all right. Don't get me wrong. None of them are Loveland in terms of receiving ability. And you need to know if AR's the guy. Give him another weapon, and if AR's not the guy, maybe Daniel Jones can make the most of them. The Falcons at 15. This has to be an edge. Mike Green ran an absolutely insane short shuttle apparently at his pro day. That might see him bumping up boards. There are character concerns, but the Falcons were going to get Deshaun Watson in. They were going to give him like a key to the city, if I'm remembering that right. So if anyone's not going to care about character concerns, it's the Falcons. And they need edge. Mike Green, you're a Falcon. The Cardinals. They need guard, they need defensive line. Feels like they have done the exact same in free agency. Although, having said that, in free agency, I think they addressed enough where they don't have to go defensive line here at all. And I think this pains me because I wanted him for the Texans, but he'll be an offensive tackle still. But I think Gray's able. I absolutely love Gray's able. I'm Gray's able pilled. I think he's the best pure interior offensive lineman in this class. Played tackle at NDSU, but he's definitely a guard and a center. Blew it up at the Senior Bowl. At both of those positions, either guard or center. I think for the Cardinals, he played guard. And again, just helping Kyler Murray, bolstering that offensive line, improving that whole offense as a whole. Great. Now the Bengals. Oh dear. What are the Bengals going to do? They need defensive line help. And I think the player that I'm going to go with here is Kenneth Grant. I absolutely love Kenneth Grant. I have him ranked higher than this, so for me, it'd be a great pick. I do think he'll go around this range, though, on the draft. For me, it's Mason Graham as a clear 1, Kenneth Grant as a clear 2, and there's quite a big gap after that to then the next kind of bunch of defensive tackles, of which there's a lot in this class. So it's possible you could think I'll pass on Grant and go and draft one in the later rounds, but Grant, I think, for me, is one of those players that you're not going to get a player like him later. And he is so good. And obviously, the Bengals have still working out Trey Hendrickson. They paid T. Higgins. They've paid Jamar Chase. They spent so much money on 3 players in Burrow, Higgins, and Chase. Crazy team building. The defense needs something. It needs something. So I think Kenneth Grant is a great fit here. Now, the Seahawks are kind of scuppered at 18 because they need interior offensive line help. And I don't know where you're going to get that, frankly, considering who's gone off the board. They could be a trade-up candidate. They've obviously got multiple slot receivers now in Cooper Kupp, Jack Smith and Jigba. They've got Sam Darnold, who's not great in the face of interior offensive, in terms of interior pressure. Could you draft Josh Simmons and try and kick one of the other guys inside? I honestly don't know. What I might do is have the Texans come up. I'm going to have the Texans come up. I am a Texans fan, also Georgia Tech fan. Shout out the mighty Yellow Jackets. Saw them beat UNC, Drake May's very own, storm the field. Unbelievable experience. Again, guys, I'm no trade guy. I'm not going to lie to you, okay? I don't know the trade value. Again, it doesn't really matter either because it's not like they have 2 first-round picks, but I imagine it will cost quite a bit to trade up quite a few spots here to get someone like a Josh Simmons. Let's say it's a second and Washington second next year. We'll package up those picks, right? That's kind of what we drafted them. We traded Laramie Tunsil for. The reason why this makes sense, I'm going to force this trade through, is because, well, I just said it. We got rid of our one decent offensive lineman. Yes, I know there's now suddenly rumors that he was not a good locker room guy. I mean, quite weird that we've only just heard that now he's gone. And also, so what? I'm not going to lie, how many people and how many players in the NFL aren't locker room guys, right? How many of them are locker room divas? Stephon Diggs is one of them. We had him on the team last year. Like, I just find that crazy. If your quarterback can't be a leader in the room, which I'm sure Stroud is, but like that's what I'm saying is that I'm sure Stroud is, I'm sure D'Amico Ryans is. What does it matter if some players aren't completely bought in? Ultimately, you know what Stroud's going to buy into? Not being on the damn ground the whole time. So our offensive line is absolutely woeful. I think we are going to make a move. We have to make a move up for a tackle because that's what we pigeonholed ourselves into like absolute morons. So I'll take Josh Simmons here. And is it inspiring? I like Josh Simmons. I know some people are super high on him. So I think it's a good get. But it's just depressing that we've replaced Laramie Tunsil with a rookie offensive lineman who had the last 3/4 of his season ruled out due to injury. Anyway, I've had my crash out about the Texans offensive line too many times now. The Buccaneers. What do you think the Buccaneers are going to do? Edge, they've lost Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. Who are the edges available here? I think Jahdae Barron's such a big fit for them in terms of what he offers. I'm not a massive Jahdae Barron guy. He is lower on my board than this. But he can wear so many hats on defense. I think also the way the Bucks play, I hope that would mean that Barron doesn't just sit at outside corner. That doesn't really inspire me. I think that he would work better as being kind of that, not a hybrid player, because that's kind of what you refer to as like Eamon Warrior is not Eamon Warrior as a hybrid player, like a Jabril Peppers as a hybrid player, or like a Jalen Walker as a hybrid player. I just mean that he can play loads of roles on the defense, and I like to see him be able to do that at the Buccaneers defense as well. Now the Broncos, I think with the way with them signing Evan Ingram, right, doesn't mean they're not going to go tight end if one of them is available here. But I do think it means they're going to go with Amari Hampton. Yes, they got burnt with Javonte Williams, the other, another UNC running back. Hampton is basically Javonte Williams, but bigger and better. And he would massively upgrade the run game. The Broncos have had for the last few years just a rotation of NPCs, really, at the running back position. Meaning no offense to anyone, but Hampton would be that guy. He would be that guy. And look, it's another weapon for this Broncos offense. And I really like what they've done in recent years to turn this ship around from the mess under Nathaniel Hackett and Russell Wilson. Credit to them. The Steelers are cooked. They are cooked. It's basically Aaron Rodgers or bust for this team, because the Giants have got both Russ and Jameis. He's doing his weird, at the time of recording this, we don't know what Aaron Rodgers is doing. And I think he's so not a Steelers player in terms of how he's going about this. Already we're seeing Steelers players being like, you want to be a Steeler or not. But it's literally Aaron Rodgers or bust. Or do they try and go back to the well of drafting a quarterback in the late teens, early 20s, a la Kenny Pickett, and go with someone like Jackson Dart? I mean, it would be an absolute car crash. But what is this team going to do? If they get the 2024 version of Aaron Rodgers, which is far more likely than the 2019 version of Aaron Rodgers at this point in his career, post Achilles tear, post just him becoming old, I don't know, man. It's looking pretty bleak. I have no idea what the Steelers are going to do at 21. I have no idea. And I feel like Steelers fans are going to hate me for whatever I do. Cornerbacks. Oh, God. Wide receiver, they traded for DK Metcalf. Why, I don't know. He and Pickens fill the same role. Quarterback, obviously, a need. I mean, my needs that I've written down here do not help me whatsoever. And running back is an insane pick for this team. Yes, they lost Najee Harris, but you're going to draft a running back at 21 when you need so many other things. They did lose their tackle, I believe, in free agency. Who we got left on the board? Oh my God. This is absolutely revolting. What the hell are the Steelers going to do here, man? You know what's absolutely crazy? I've just looked at the Steelers depth chart, and I genuinely think I like their team. I think they've got good offensive line. They'd obviously drafted Troy Fautanu last year, missed a lot of time. They got Broderick Jones on the other side. They've got Metcalf, they've got Pickens. Really, for me, I'm looking at Luther Burden here as that slot player, because I think they're going to try and ship Pickens maybe, because there is such a massive overlap with what Pickens offers and what DK offers. Or it's Jackson Dart, because I don't know what this team's going to do, and they can make a move in the second to try and grab Dart. They could draft a Jalen Milroe. Good grief. I'm going to go Luther Burden here, because I just think that the PTSD after Pickett drafting a quarterback in a similar position, I think 19 years drafted, would send Steelers fans feral. Now the Chargers. Wide receiver, I would love to draft like a Jaden Higgins here, but I don't think the league's going to do that. I definitely don't think that Harbaugh's going to do that. Defensive line, to replace that Bosa, maybe this is where James Pierce Jr. comes off the board. His character concerns aren't quite as bad as Mike Green's. So I'm going to go with James Pierce Jr. here to kind of be that Joey Bosa replacement. Now the Packers, you know what? I don't care, right? I don't care. I'm going to do what I think the Packers should do here. And Packers fans, listen up, because I'm about to cook for you. I'm going to take Jaden Higgins, right? I think Jaden Higgins is worth the 23rd overall pick. That might be a hot take. I don't care. His tape is brilliant. 6'4", 214 pounds, great movement skills, can be that outside guy. You have so many slot gadget players. Jaden Reed. You've got Romeo Dobbs. Like, these guys are not like duds. They're not studs. They're just guys. And Jaden Higgins could be that guy. You need an alpha. So I'm going with Jaden Higgins. Do I think this is going to happen? No. The Packers are not going to draft a first-round wide receiver ever. But they should. The Vikings. This is where I'm struggling between Malachi Starks and Nick Emanwari. I'm going to go with Malachi Starks here. I think Malachi Starks is a top 10 player. He's 10th on my big board. I absolutely love Malachi Starks. I think he's got such high game IQ. Second only, I think, to Travis Hunter. He has great coverage ability. Thing is he doesn't offer any pass rush ability or any blitzing ability, which I know that Brian Flores values. So maybe a Nick Emanwari would be a better fit here. But I'm going to go with the talent. I think Starks is a first-round talent, absolutely. I don't think Emanwari is, and I'm going to hope that the NFL agrees with me there and not get lost in the combine numbers. Now, the Seahawks are on the clock here at 25. Does this make an interior offensive line selection more serviceable, more acceptable? Probably not, unfortunately. Like, oh, God. Like, Tyler Booker obviously is probably the best guard left on the board, but I don't think that he's a scheme fit. Tyler Booker's someone that can't move well. He is, kind of guy that you want in a phone booth. Good north-south offensive lineman, not a good east-west. So I don't know about him. Is Donovan Jackson a tackle? Look, that's early. I know that's early, but it's that pressing of a need that you just have to draft someone there because, the Seahawks do have 5 picks in the top 92. So they could feasibly get a Donovan Jackson later or another offensive lineman later. It's pretty ballsy, but I'm going to go with that. And I am going to go with an edge here because I think that's also what they need. Yeah, they got Boye Mafe and can't remember the other one. They're okay. I think they can definitely be upgraded. Could this be where Shamar Stewart comes off the board? For me, I would go Donovan Ezeraku here. I love Ezeraku. But I think it's going to be a Michael Williams before Shamar Stewart. I think that he's more palatable being a Georgia player. He has more production than Stewart. Similar sort of guy, has all the physical traits, has all the athletic ability, doesn't have the production. I think that Michael Williams is a slightly more acceptable version of Shamar Stewart. Now, the Rams. What are the Rams going to do here? Obviously, they lost Kupp. They kind of need potentially... they got Devontae Adams, so they have their outside guy. They've got Puka in the slot, so they're all set there. Tackle. There could be someone like a Josh Connolly Jr. available here, which I do actually think is what I'm going to go with. I'm going to go Josh Connolly Jr. Again, little bit rich, maybe, but you're getting a potential starting offensive tackle all the way at 26, and it's going to help the rest of the offense. And Matthew Stafford, if he takes another hit, literally might die. Now, the Ravens. I think this is where Shamar Stewart comes off the board at this point. He's such a Ravens player in the sense that he's big, physical, could be that alpha edge rusher that they need. So I'm going to go with Shamar Stewart there. Now, the Lions. What are they going to do? They also need edge. This is where the edge starts. The value here for edge is absolutely there. There's a really good edge class. And it's going to be a Donovan Ezeraku. A bit more of an absolute student of the game as an edge rusher. Has a great bag of pass rush moves. A great edge too. A genuinely great edge too. Because just the way he wins is so technical, so finessed, so refined. Him opposite Aiden Hutchinson, Ezeraku would be my pick for Rookie of the Year. He's going to walk into 7-8 sacks just because of Aiden Hutchinson. Commanders, I'm going to go with Emeka Egbuka here. I'm going to go with Emeka Egbuka. Something that I know they have their kind of slot guy, but what Egbuka offers with McLaurin, I think, is a fantastic skill set. 2 Ohio State guys, and I think from the slot, Egbuka just offers such a high floor. I question his ceiling, but if you've got McLaurin, you don't need Egbuka to be a 1, and I don't think he is 1. I think Egbuka is a really high 2, kind of like a bit like a Chris Godwin kind of vibe, and that's not exciting, but look how great Chris Godwin's been next to Mike Evans. Not that Evans is the same as McLaurin, obviously, but having a good 1 and a great 2, it's a force multiplier. Now, the Bills. Are they, how many games are they going to get from Bosa? Probably 4. So with the Bills, I've looked at their needs, and again, this is just going to be what I would do here because it's very difficult to predict at this point in the draft at 30 what the Bills are going to do. They don't have any outside wide receivers. They added Josh Palmer. Okay, great. But they've still got Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, Dalton Kincaid, and Keon Coleman I like, but again, are you resting your hat on that guy being the outside guy you want to add? Now, for me, I wouldn't take Golden. I don't have Golden as a first-round player. I didn't see the 4.29 speed on his tape at all. I don't think he's a fantastic athlete. I know he tested like one, but I'm going to trust the tape over the combine here. He was a track athlete. He knows how to run fast and knows the technique for it. So, look, great time. I'm sure he does have good speed, but not 4.29 speed, not 4.29 play speed, at least, right? I would go here. See, that's the thing, is that I would have gone for someone like the other Iowa State receiver that I've already taken in Jaden Higgins. Could Golden Hand kind of stand up on the outside? I'm going to go with Golden here in the sense that I think NFL teams will value him pretty highly, and it's another weapon that will play ideally more outside, although I question if he could do that, so I'm kind of contradicting myself here, but I think this is definitely a pick that I could see happening for good or bad. The Chiefs, good grief, what the hell are these guys doing? They need offensive line. They're a massive trade-up candidate. I'm going to give them, though, am I going to go Arianti Ursary? It's so early for both these guys. For Arianti Ursary and Donovan Jackson. They do need defensive line. I really like Derek Harmon. I'm not a massive Walter Nolan guy. I'm going to go with Derek Harmon here as a more beef and a good one of the best interior pass rushers actually in this class. Great pass rush, win rate, good bag of pass rush moves. Plays a little high, but I think he could be fantastic, especially next to Chris Jones. And finally, this is going to be Jalen Walker, the most Howie Roseman pick of all time. Another Georgia Bulldog, uber athletic. I think he'll be a good fit with this defensive scheme as well. It's going to be Jalen Walker. So, you can now see all of the picks I've made. If you agree with me, disagree with me, let me know in the comments. Give a reason. I do like to hear your guys' thoughts. Sometimes you cook, sometimes I don't agree, but that is the spirit of the draft. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. Again, we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers on the channel. I'd really appreciate it if you did. We're trying to get there before the draft, so do make sure you subscribe. But I've been your host, Dom Corbs. This has been Corbs NFL. We'll see you on the next episode.